If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll remember a video I did a while back where I took a look at the Raptors' young forward OG Anunoby. In this video, I looked at where OG came from, how he got to the NBA, and what he's done so far as a player to demand your attention. Now this video is going to serve as a sort of follow-up to that video, where I plan to take a deeper dive into what makes OG Anunoby such a great player and why everyone should be paying attention to him. Now, based on the research that I've done, I have reason to truly believe that OG Anunoby is arguably the best 3&D wing in the entire NBA, and I think he has the potential to add to his game to ultimately become an all-star. Before we get into it, my name is Alex, and if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a like on the video. I'm posting NBA content all the time, and we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without you. If you're returning to the channel, thank you so much. With all that being said, let's get right into the video. Now, in the first video, and I'll leave a link to that below and on the screen up in the top, you'll remember that I took a pretty surface level look at OG's stats. Simple box score stuff, basic eye test, etc. But after looking deeper into OG's abilities as a player, combined with some advanced analytics, I've been able to paint a much clearer picture that will help illustrate what makes him such a great player, and in terms of contract, one of the most valuable players in the NBA. Now, on the surface, he had solid numbers this year: 15.9 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 48% field goal shooting, 39.8% three-point field goal shooting, for an effective field goal percentage of 58%. His role is mainly to play defense and hang out on the perimeter for threes, and he's very, very good at it. But taking a closer look, he's not just great at shooting threes, he's also an incredibly efficient finisher at the rim. On shots at the rim, the second most common shot attempt for OG, he shot 75.9% this season on 133 attempts. That's only 7% less than NBA champion and MVP candidate Giannis Antetokounmpo shot this season, a testament to his level of finishing ability that OG Anunoby possesses. I want to compare OG to two players in particular that seem to draw a lot of comparisons to OG that fit into that 3&D mold, and that's Mikal Bridges and Duncan Robinson. It makes sense because they are all very similar in terms of the roles that they play for their teams. Again, at a glance, Mikal and Duncan are more efficient than OG in field goal percentage, three-point percentage, and free throw shooting, but that doesn't exactly tell the entire story. If you take a look at their offensive load, you'll see that OG Anunoby has an offensive load of 26, whereas Mikal Bridges only has an offensive load of 20. Duncan Robinson comes in at 22.4. Now, if you're unfamiliar with offensive load is a calculation of the number of possessions that a player is involved in per 100 possessions, meaning that OG is involved in 26, whereas Mikal is only involved in 20, and Robinson in 22.4. This could help address the differences in field goal / three-point shooting percentages, as OG is brunting more of an offensive load than Mikal and Duncan. This is likely due to the Raptors being a lottery team and the Suns and Heat being a championship contender and playoff team, respectively. As a role player as these three are, your offensive load will be very reflective of how good or bad your team is, with the guy on the worst team having a higher offensive load and the guy on the better teams having a lower offensive load. The next metric that I want to take a look at between these three is points per 75 possessions. OG Anunoby has a points per 75 of 17.5 compared to Mikal Bridges, who has 15.2. This means that in 75 possessions, OG will score on average 17.5 points compared to Mikal's 15.2. Duncan Robinson is similar to Mikal in the sense that he scores 15.8 points per 75 possessions. Now, this difference may not seem like a lot, but OG being 2 points higher despite playing roughly the same number of minutes on average is very, very telling. The next few metrics that we're going to take a look at are defensive metrics. The first one is forced turnovers per 75 possessions. This means in 75 possessions, how many turnovers will this player force the other team to commit? This includes steals, charges drawn, and offensive fouls drawn. This is a rough measure of the kind of defense you can expect from these guys. Robinson comes in at 0.9, Mikal comes in at 1.4, and OG comes in at 1.9. This is starting to confirm my suspicion based on the eye test that OG is a better defender than the other two. Now, another metric that I consulted was 538's Raptor model to see how all of these guys compare offensively and defensively. If you're unfamiliar with Raptor, it stands for Robust Algorithm Using Player Tracking and On-Off Ratings. You can't draw too many conclusions from it, but it is a good way to compare players who have similar playstyles and have very similar roles on their respective teams. OG has a total Raptor of 2.5, with a defensive Raptor of 2.3 and an offensive Raptor of 0.2. Mikal has a Raptor of 3 with a defensive Raptor of 1.2 and an O Raptor of 1.8. Robinson has a Raptor of 0 with an O Raptor of 0.5 and a D Raptor of -0.5. Some things to note here. While Mikal does have a higher total overall Raptor, Raptor heavily utilizes on-off ratings, and Mikal played with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, meaning that his on-off ratings are likely going to be better due to playing on a contender. The main thing that I wanted to note is that OG Anunoby clocks a massive 2.3 D Raptor, 1.1 more than Mikal Bridges, and obviously a lot more than Duncan Robinson. You'll notice that I didn't include players like Danny Green and Robert Covington. And the reason for that is because they are really only considered great 3&D wings on reputation alone at this point. Their numbers are significantly worse than primarily Mikal and OG, and the eye test will tell you the same thing. Robert Covington's efficiency is not nearly what it used to be, and Danny Green hasn't been the defender or scorer that he used to be. So what's the conclusion here? Well, like the title says, I think that OG Anunoby is the best 3&D wing in the NBA right now. It's easy to look at team success and make the arguments for guys on playoff teams, but OG carried much more of an offensive and defensive load and still managed to put up nearly equal or greater numbers. That's not to say there aren't flaws to his game, but the impact that he has on the basketball court makes it incredibly difficult to deny that he sits at the top of the 3&D hierarchy. So who do you think is the best 3&D guy in the NBA? Be sure to comment below, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. I'm making content like this all the time, and I'd love for you to join our community. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.